a branded app experience for you that kind of exposes this content. But if we do this, we're going to duke it out in the market just to get, if we're lucky, 5,000, 10,000 users if it's wildly successful of this app. But this app happens to have millions of users and is the exact demographic that you want. So what if we do an app update and we build technology into the app so that we can remote control the day that the television campaign goes live? What if we could essentially introduce a new branded content channel into the app in a very organic and elegant way? We'll do all the art direction and execution. And of course we provided a little dating service between Microsoft and Mountain Dew to work that out if they were a piece with Mountain Dew content inside their app. And we actually were even successful in upselling the Mountain Dew program into the Xbox console. It was just an incredible effort of kind of creative approvals and technical alignment. But then, boom, overnight, there was a new channel. It was lit up inside the Xbox app, and it was wicked. It had every one of the graffiti writers had their own page inside the Xbox app. You could dive in, look at other products they had made. You could buy those products. It was a really, really cool experience. And this was a turning point for us kind of as a company spiritually, because we said, you know what? It's not about building apps and the hand-to-hand combat of building that app audience. Instead, it's about this notion of what is now called native advertising, elegantly and organically lighting up long-form or unique branded content, not necessarily uppercase A advertising, but really content experiences right there in situ together with another kind of brand relevant to that audience. So from there, we went on to do these types of programs with hundreds of brands. We did literally thousands of these campaigns that were centered around it, to the point where we actually even built a whole technology framework, which we call ZBI, or Zumobi Brand Integration. It's sort of, think of it as like iAd for content. It's a very deep, hardware-specific SDK designed for apps. Now, an interesting twist happened here. So once we rolled this out, it got a lot of attention. We actually, our launch partner for the ZBI platform was American Express, and that was a very, very cool brand to work with. They are amazing in terms of their sophistication. Probably the most enlightened creative brief I've ever received in terms of what they wanted to achieve. And the shorthand of it was that they felt that the membership has its privileges, was very exclusive, and the idea was how can we be a little bit more democratic, where welcome in, a little bit more democratic. So they wanted to have users like share pictures of a cool pair of shoes they just bought and figure out how to save in a location-based way on some of their favorite things. But they didn't want to do it as an app. They wanted to use ZBI and light that experience in, almost like an app within an app, across hundreds of thousands of apps in the App Store. Which took, again, it was a very difficult kind of journey in terms of creative approvals and technical approvals. But the final result was wicked. So the first thing was, the units themselves were really fun. So we did these really beautiful kind of organic units that felt like they were organic to the apps. We did this new unit, which we call the Paso Doble. They're the two-step. All of our ad units are named after dancing moves. So auto expand hovers there for a very scientific 4.3 seconds just to capture interest, then fades back down. So it's like, from a user experience standpoint, it's like the perfect midpoint between a banner, which we all know how good we are at ignoring, and a blocking interstitial, which we all know how much we hate. So it's like this little sort of teaser from a nice, elegant brand, hovers there for 4.3 seconds, very scientific, user-tested number, hovers back down. And so it's like, show us some picture from a recent trip you took, or have a favorite shop, a recent great find, and then it collapses back down and it kind of invites the user to save on shopping. And then the cool thing was, once you did that, then you would push the ad, and then you'd be presented with this very sexy, like panoramic unit that was this really beautiful, totally customized experience. Here's how it works. So the first thing is, when you went in, it said, create a personalized panorama of what you love, and then save on some of your favorite things. So that sounds cool. I'll create a panorama. So it asks me, okay, first type in your first name, which I'll do, and then type in your location. I'm from Longwood. And then, it's all totally spoken weird. So then, now it says, I'm most likely to use my American Express card to update my wardrobe, buy the latest gadget, tame my travel bug, or try a new bistro. So I'll try that. Now the next thing is that it says, do you have a favorite dish or delicious treat? So show us a photo. Now at this point, when you say choose photo, I'm sorry. See, it's really collapses the illusion. But then what it does is it pulls up your photo roll. This actually took no small amount of technical kung fu because we had to figure out how to be able to kind of get from the HTML5 construct and hand off a command to trigger the native photo picker UI of your phone inside an ad unit. That had never been done before. In fact, even IAD hadn't yet done that on their own platform. So this was a first. This was a first for us, and we worked directly with Apple. I was on a plane to Cupertino every month to figure out how to do this effectively. So now I choose like a cool, cool restaurant that I went to, and all the native controls were in there. I could pinch and drag around, and kind of move and crop, and then I could say I want to use this. And then it would basically spin for a little bit, and then I'd be presented with this very, very cool panoramic experience that was all about me, right? So here's my name, here's my hometown. This was another cool technical bit, is that there was a Twitter follow button, but at the time, the Twitter success rates of follows on mobile ad units were shockingly low, incredibly low, sub 1%. So we said, well, wouldn't it be cool if someone has already given permission to the Twitter, to the app to be able to interact with their iOS, at the time, 7 Twitter login information? What if, on the ad unit, you could just actuate on the Twitter bird and there'd be a spinner on the button and the text would change from follow to following, because we'd be using, instead of using the ad Twitter controls, we'd use the right on the metal iOS native Twitter controls. We did the same thing on Android. That drove up the following numbers dramatically. So that's an example of like a pretty dumb and simple creative insight, but a Herculean engineering effort to get that to work right across tens of thousands of apps. So that was really very cool. And then of course this was a picture from my photo roll. It's kind of cool to see that in an ad. We also would select other photos based on how you answered the questions, and you could add additional photos if you wanted to. There was a long-form video inside the ad experience, so you could watch video. And then lastly, you could go ahead and sign up for their location-based system right there inside the app. So this was the most ambitious mobile ad that American Express had ever done, and it got tons of awards. A very cool program, but we learned a lot about the complexity of, first of all, the vision of a really ambitious mobile campaign that synchronizes with what audience they were trying to connect to, but also a little bit about the heavy lifting from a technical standpoint about what does it take to achieve this. So another example that I'll give you is we did a very, very cool campaign with Chevrolet, and this is a little bit more, this kind of is a waypoint on the way to where Zumobi is now spiritually, because this was much more about long-form kind of content. The short brief is that Chevrolet is trying to recast their impression to the audience from being a car company to being a little bit more of a technology company. So they actually, rather than serving advertising and 30-second spots, they wanted long-form content. They wanted 5-minute long vignettes about the future of transportation and the future of manufacturing. So what we did was we worked with Motor Trend, which is another Zumobi partner, and we essentially lit up these very beautiful, almost presented by style units that did not feel like a banner. Semi-transparent, integrated in with the app design. We worked with the design team that designed the Motor Trend app to make them elegant. We even reserved a little bit of real estate on the dashboard of the Motor Trend app. Again, this is a massive app in the App Store. And we lit up, rather than like an ad banner, we had this beautiful thing that was lit up in the on the dashboard home screen that showed, hey, there's a new Chevy Tech series, you should check it out. So then as the user's navigating through the app, they can tap on road tests, and they would tap on an article, and then once again you see that Paso Doble unit, which has been real successful for us. Auto expand, 4.3 seconds. It was actually spec'd to the creative agency, which in this case was Goodby, that they had to give an alluring image, in this case of a race car, and then the call to action had to be on the top 100 retina pixels. And then after 4.3 seconds, that auto collapses. It kind of creates this gravitational force where you're like, whoa, what was that? That was cool. And then when you actuate on that, that takes you into this, which is really, an app within an app. Like it's long-form content. You can read, in detail. And then, of course, when you, after a couple of weeks, we would have these new sections that would light up over time. So, it would drop down a channel selector so that every couple of weeks a new section. And then we also did a very cool unit staging strategy where, the powertrain unit was the launch content. A couple weeks later, propulsion would go live, synchronized with a color-coded series of ad units. Same thing, a couple weeks later, driving dynamics, boom, red units everywhere. So that synchronization and very thoughtful kind of media staging in partnership with Motor Trend allowed us to drive up the click-through rates through the roof. We had 11.8% engagement rates, which is science fiction in mobile, as you know. So very, very successful engagement campaign. And then we also, there's a button way up at the top, Save to Home Screen, which I definitely can't read. That allows you to kind of go through and add it to your home screen. And we took all the HTML5 elements and galvanized them into kind of a home screen element. And shockingly, 6.8% of the people that encountered the ad unit actually chose to save it to their home screen. So this insight about the fact that, first of all, the content was excellent, so that was not Zumobi's doing. Goodby created beautiful content, really respectful to the user. It was not like you should buy a car at all. It was very much about like the future of transportation. So this campaign was very, very fun and very successful, and actually won the IAB Gold in 2013 for mobile. So this, it really is an insight about the value of having long-form conversational media. It's very, very powerful. So this next thing that I'll talk about, and I'll sort of step down. This next thing I'm going to talk about is branded content. And specifically, something crazy has happened in the last year, which is that once upon a time, as you saw, these brands, they're creating great content, but they're still trafficking that content, frankly, in the same way that they did 100 years ago. They're not buying a page in a magazine, but they're buying a share of voice of a mobile app that has audience. However, those lines crossed last year, where now the high-profile branded apps, any major consumer bank, Chase, Bank of America, any of those, any major airline, Delta, United, they all have more audience in their app, certainly the retailers like Target and others, they have more audience in their app than the media properties where they're buying media. So the obvious question is like, dude, you have this incredible content, you've hired a small army of content creators, you have a growing app audience that's now maybe 4 times the size of the CNN app, a massive audience in these apps. Yet, why in the hell is none of your content inside your app? I mean, in fact, if you look at a major consumer bank, they're actually putting their branded content in your snail mail mailbox, which nobody reads, right? The open rates are shockingly low. So now there's a good reason why they don't do this. It's actually quite hard to do it well, because you have to ingest the content freshly, you have to figure out how to secure it and encrypt it, compress it, send it down to the device. You can't impact load times, you can't create any friction in the user experience of checking your balance, all those things. But we do have this insight that pretty much all of the branded apps are all about the verbs. Check your balance, book a flight, very tactical stuff. We think that's a huge missed opportunity because we think apps are an incredible channel for long-form content engagement. So what we're doing now, and really this just launched last month, we're launching with a major brand, kind of Fortune 10 brand this in February. So the notion is, this is our fake airline that we invented just to kind of talk about the platform. But the idea is that we ingest all this content on the back end, we light it up inside the brand's own app. And the nice thing about that is that not only can you use it for your own media, just by adding a button for the Content Hub and giving users access to social media, YouTube, etc., but you can also, like we did with Chevy, use the same Content Hub to be able to power your advertising, because we've learned that that drives much higher engagement rates and much longer kind of session times. So that way, once we figure out how to platformize the way that brands can ingest their content, stage it, and create an elegant user interface for consuming it, we have almost like a Google Now style card-based presentation of this content. Then we believe that's a huge opportunity for advertising in the future. Specifically, what excites me about this is all the stuff you can do with it. Because unlike an ad campaign that's being served in some other app, when it's inside your own app, then first of all, your users have essentially opted in. They've selected this is their bank, or this is their airline, etc. And the nice thing is that we can tag up all of the content either from the source or as an intermediate step, we've added a tagging construct. And then we can deliver that content in a very secure way into the Content Hub. We can track with incredible precision exactly what content an individual user has taken to. So one of our biggest customers is Ford. Well, Ford, obviously they have hybrids and they have Mustangs, and they have such dynamic range. They have families, they have performance enthusiasts. So how do you characterize those users? They're not always framed that way in the customer database. We can help augment that data by ascertaining what types of content they engage with and the species of content they engage with. So for example, if they're always watching videos, but they never read articles, let's serve them more videos. So we can provide a very detailed report back to the brand of which individual users, not by name, but by anonymous ADID or advertising ID at both Apple and Google. And then we can actually adjust the content mix based on those insights programmatically in real time. And then we can even do targeted remessaging to those users either through push notification, or we can do targeted ad buys using IDFA retargeting. IDFA is ID for advertisers. It's Apple's kind of framework for unique per user identification. So we can say, hey, IDFA 134976 is really into Mustang content. They watch every piece of Mustang content, but they haven't launched the Ford app in a long time. So let's actually buy ads on that user's phone in Angry Birds, just targeting that unique IDFA user that says, hey, there's a new piece of Mustang content available in the app. Boom, they actuate on it, we use the URL